Hey everyone, hope you're doing great. Welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we'll dive into what if Deku and Dabi were brothers. Smash that subscribe button, and be sure to peek at the description below. Let's begin. The world was not red. That was the first lie his father had ever told him, or perhaps it was the first lie Tuya had told himself. Fire was supposed to be red, warm, inviting, the color of a hearth, the color of the number 2 hero's beard. But the world wasn't red. It was blue. It was a blinding, screaming, agonized cobalt that ate the oxygen out of the air and replaced it with the smell of ozone and cooking meat. Tuya Todoroki stood in the center of Sokoto Peak, his mouth open in a silent scream that was drowned out by the roar of his own quirk. The flames were beautiful in the way a tsunami is beautiful to someone standing on the shore, watching the water recede. They were absolute. They were hungry. And they were eating him alive. Look at me! He had screamed earlier, his voice cracking with the desperation of a 13-year-old boy who just wanted to be seen. Dad! Look at me! But the path was empty. The bench was empty. The trees were twisting into charcoal skeletons, curling away from the heat of his grief. Endeavor wasn't here. Nobody was here. Tuya fell to his knees. The heat wasn't outside anymore, it was inside. It was in his marrow. His jaw unhinged, tears evaporating before they could even touch his cheeks. The fire danced along his arms, licking up his neck, familiar and traitorous. It felt like a hug from a parent who loved you too much, squeezed too hard, until your ribs snapped. He didn't come. The realization hurt more than the fire. The physical pain was blinding, a white noise that obliterated thought, but the emotional severance was a guillotine. He had trained. He had pushed. He had burned himself night after night, hiding the scars, waiting for this moment to show that he wasn't a failure, that his constitution didn't matter, that his will was stronger than his weak, ice-resistant body. And it was all for nothing. The blue flames flared one last time, a supernova of temper tantrums, before Tuya's vision went white. He collapsed forward, his face hitting the superheated dirt. The impact jarred the breath out of him, and oddly, that saved him. The shock broke the concentration needed to maintain the output. The blue flickered. Died. Silence rushed back into the forest, heavy and suffocating. Tuya lay in the ash, smoke curling from his skin. He couldn't feel his jaw. He couldn't feel his left arm. He tried to inhale, but his throat felt like he had swallowed a handful of razor blades. Get up, a voice whispered. It sounded like Shuto. Or maybe Natsuo. Or maybe it was just the instinct of a dying animal. He forced his eyes open. The world was blurry, smeared with gray ash and black spots. He had to move. If he stayed here, he would die. Or worse, his father would find him. The thought sent a jolt of adrenaline through his ruined nervous system. If he finds me, he'll see. He'll see I'm broken. He'll look at me with that face, that disappointment. Tuya dragged himself up. His skin felt too tight, like a suit that had shrunk in the wash. Every movement was a tearing sensation. He stumbled, his legs feeling like jelly, and began the descent. The walk down the mountain was a blur of nightmare logic. Tuya didn't remember the path. He didn't remember the time. He only remembered the rhythmic thud of his boots against the earth, and the way the trees seemed to lean away from him, repulsed by the monster walking in their midst. He was a ghost. He had to be. Tuya Todoroki had died on that peak. The thing walking down wasn't a boy. It was a husk made of charcoal and regret. He reached the outskirts of the city as the sun began to dip below the horizon. The sky turned a bruised purple, mocking him. He avoided the main roads. He stuck to the shadows, the alleyways, the spaces between buildings where the garbage rotted and the stray cats hissed. People walked by on the illuminated sidewalks. He saw them through the gaps in the fences. Normal people. Families. A father holding a daughter's hand. A mother pushing a stroller. They were clean. They were whole. They didn't smell like burnt pork and tragedy. He hated them. The hate was a cold stone in his stomach, the only thing that felt cool in his entire body. Help me, he wanted to scream, but his voice was gone. He stumbled into a quieter residential district. The houses here were smaller, the apartments stacked like bento boxes. It was a lower middle-class area, far from the traditional Japanese estate where he had grown up. There were no high walls here. Just rusty chain-link fences and small parks with peeling paint. His vision swam. The ground tilted violently to the left. Tuya reached out to steady himself against a brick wall, but his hand slipped. He left a smear of blood and soot on the masonry. He fell. He didn't hit the ground hard. He didn't have the energy for impact. He just crumpled, sliding down the wall until he was a heap of ragged clothes and burnt flesh on the cold pavement. It was raining. He hadn't noticed. The drops sizzled faintly against his skin, tiny mercies that felt like needle pricks. So this is it, Tuya thought, his mind drifting away from the pain. I'd die in a gutter. Fitting. Trash belongs in the trash. He closed his eyes, welcoming the darkness. It was better than the blue. Mommy! Look! A scarecrow. The voice was high piping, and impossibly loud in the quiet evening. Izuku, don't point, it's rude. And stay close, it's raining. The second voice was softer, laced with a perpetual anxiety. A mother. Tuya tried to curl in on himself, to make himself smaller, invisible. Go away. Leave me alone. But Mommy, the scarecrow is smoking. Footsteps. Small, splashing steps, followed by the hurried click-clack of heels. Izuku, get back here! What are you? The woman's voice cut off abruptly. A gasp, sharp and horrified, sliced through the rain. Tuya cracked one eye open. It was crusted shut, sticky with fluid, but he managed a slit of vision. Standing over him was a green blur. A small, round child in a yellow raincoat with rabbit ears on the hood. The child was staring at him with wide, impossible eyes, green like emeralds, green like life. Behind the child, a woman froze. She was short, with the same green hair, holding a clear umbrella that was currently tilting dangerously to the side. Her hands flew to her mouth. Oh my God, she whispered. Tuya tried to snarl. He tried to channel the menace of endeavor, the intimidation of a hero's son. Gee, go! Came the raspy croak. It sounded less like a threat and more like a dying radiator. The woman didn't run. She didn't scream for the police. She didn't look at him with disgust. She dropped the umbrella. It clattered to the wet pavement, forgotten. Inko Midoriya fell to her knees in the mud, disregarding her skirt, disregarding the grime. Her hands hovered over him, shaking, terrified to touch but desperate to help. Oh, you poor baby, she breathed. Her eyes were filling with tears. Izuku, don't look. Turn around, honey. Is he hurt? The boy, Izuku asked, his voice trembling. He didn't turn around. He stepped closer. I said turn around. Inko's voice cracked with panic, but her focus was entirely on Tuya. Can you hear me? Can you tell me your name? Tuya stared at her. Why was she crying? She didn't know him. If she knew who he was, she would call his father. She would send him back. No. He wheezed. No. Father. Inko's eyes widened. She was a woman who lived her life in a state of mild chronic worry, but she possessed a spine of steel when it mattered. She saw the burns, the horrific, distinct pattern of quirk overuse. She saw the staples in his clothes, the quality of the fabric beneath the soot. And she heard the terror in that single word, father. She made a decision in a heartbeat. She was a trained paramedic, though she hadn't practiced since Izuku was born. Her instincts roared to life, overriding the horror. Okay, she said, her voice dropping into a calm, controlled register that felt like a cool bomb. No, father. Just us. I'm going to touch you now, okay? I need to check your pulse. She placed 2 fingers gently on the unburnt patch of skin on his neck. Her hands were cold. It felt heavenly. Thready, she muttered to herself. Severe dehydration. 3rd-degree burns covering. God, 40%? Shock. He's going into shock. She looked up, scanning the street. It was empty. The rain was getting heavier. Izuku, she said firmly. The boy snapped to attention, tears bubbling in his eyes. Yes, Mommy? Run to the apartment. Open the door. Get the first aid kit, the big one, under the sink. And get all the towels. Do it now. But, go, Izuku. Be a hero. At the word hero, the boy's face steeled. He nodded frantically and sprinted toward the apartment complex across the street, his yellow boots splashing puddles. Inko turned back to Tuya. She began to shrug off her cardigan. I'm going to lift you, she told him. It's going to hurt. I am so sorry. But we can't stay here. Let me die. Tuya whispered. Inko wrapped her cardigan around his shoulders, shielding the worst of the burns from the rain. She looked him dead in the eye, her expression fierce and tear-streaked. Absolutely not, she said. Not on my watch. She slid her arms under him. He was light, too light for his height. A lanky, starving thing. With a grunt of effort that belied her small stature, Inko Midoriya hoisted the boy into her arms. Tuya screamed, a raw, jagged sound that tore his throat apart, before the world went black again. The next time Tuya woke, the world smelled different. The ozone and rot were gone, replaced by the scent of antiseptic, lavender laundry detergent, and catsudan. He was floating. No, he was lying on something incredibly soft. Panic spiked in his chest. Hospital. If he was in a hospital, Endeavor knew. If Endeavor knew, the training would restart. Or worse, the rejection would happen all over again. He thrashed, trying to sit up. Hey, easy. You'll rip the stitches. A pair of hands gently pushed him back down. They were firm but careful, avoiding the bandages that swathed his torso, arms, and neck. Tuya blinked rapidly, his vision clearing. He was in a bedroom. But not his room. It was small. The walls were painted a soft cream color. There were glow-in-the-dark stars stuck to the ceiling. A poster of All Might, grinning that insufferable, blinding grin, hung on the opposite wall. Tuya hissed at the sight of it. You're awake, the woman's voice said. He turned his head slowly. The woman from the rain, Inko, was sitting in a chair beside the bed. She looked exhausted. Her green hair was frizzy, and there were dark circles under her eyes. She was wringing a damp cloth in her hands. Where? Tuya rasped. His throat felt better. Someone had trickled water into him while he slept. My apartment, Inko said softly. You're in my son's room. He's sleeping on the couch. Why? Why is he on the couch? Why am I here? Tuya corrected, his voice harsh. Why didn't you call the pros? The police? Inko looked down at her hands. You asked me not to, she said simply. You said no, father? And when I cut your shirt off to treat the burns, I saw the scars. The old ones? Tuya went rigid. Inko looked up, her gaze steady but profoundly sad. I was a paramedic for 6 years before I had Izuku. I know the difference between a training accident and something else. I didn't call the police because I didn't know who the police would call. Tuya stared at her. He had never met an adult who used logic to protect a child rather than enforce rules. My name is Midoriya Inko, she said. You're safe here. I treated the burns as best I could. I have some connections. A doctor who owes me a favor dropped off some supplies and painkillers. He didn't see your face. Tuya lay back against the pillow, the adrenaline fading, leaving him hollow. You're risking a lot for a stray. You're a child, Inko said, as if that explained everything. Hungry? Tuya's stomach gave a treacherous growl. Inko smiled, a small, tentative thing. I made soup. It's easy on the stomach. I'll be right back. She stood up and left the room, leaving the door slightly ajar. Tuya stared at the All Might poster. The symbol of peace stared back. You didn't save me, Tuya thought bitterly. She did. A shadow fell across the sliver of light in the doorway. Tuya tensed. The door creaked open, pushing slowly inward. A tuft of green hair appeared at the bottom of the frame. Then 2 large eyes. It was the kid. The one in the yellow raincoat. He was wearing All Might pajamas now. He looked about 4 years old, round-cheeked and trembling with a mix of fear and curiosity. Tuya stared at him. The kid stared back. Mom said I shouldn't bother you, the boy whispered. Then go away, Tuya rasped. The boy didn't go away. He shuffled into the room, clutching something behind his back. He crept toward the bed as if approaching a sleeping dragon. Are you a villain? The boy asked. Tuya let out a dry, hacking laugh. Maybe. I look like one, don't I? He knew what he looked like. Even before the fire, he had the eyes of a killer. Now bandaged and burnt, he must look like a nightmare. The boy considered this. Mommy says you're hurt. Villains hurt people. Heroes get hurt saving people. I didn't save anyone, Tuya spat. I just burned. The boy stopped by the side of the bed. He was so short his chin barely cleared the mattress. He studied Tuya's bandaged face with an intensity that was unsettling. It smells like a barbecue, the boy noted innocently. Tuya choked on a laugh that turned into a cough. Yeah, it does. The boy brought his hands out from behind his back. He was holding an action figure. It was All Might, naturally. The hero was posed in a dynamic punch. Here, the boy said, thrusting the toy toward Tuya's bandaged hand. He keeps the nightmares away. You can borrow him. Tuya looked at the toy. The bright colors. The smile. It represented everything he hated. Everything his father chased. The reason he was discarded. I don't want your trash, Tuya said coldly. He swiped his hand out, weakly, and knocked the figure from the boy's grip. It clattered to the floor. Most kids would have cried. Most kids would have run to their mother. The boy just looked at the fallen toy, then back at Tuya. He didn't look angry. He looked calculating. He bent down and picked up All Might. He set it on the nightstand. Then, he reached into his pajama pocket. Okay, the boy said. All Might is too loud for sleeping. I get it. He pulled out a different toy. It was a generic, battered green soldier. It was missing an arm. This is Sir Night Eye, the boy improvised, though the toy clearly wasn't. He's quiet. And he's tough. He placed the soldier gently on the mattress, right next to Tuya's hand. He doesn't have an arm, Tuya pointed out, baffled by the child's persistence. He's still a hero, the boy said firmly. He just fights different now. Tuya stared at the plastic soldier. He just fights different now. Something in his chest, something that had been calcified by years of neglect and abuse, cracked. Just a hairline fracture. What's your name, kid? Tuya asked, his voice barely audible. Midoriya Izuku, the boy beamed. I'm gonna be a hero too. Even though Kaken says I can't cause I don't have a quirk yet. But the doctor says maybe I'm just a late bloomer. Quirkless? Tuya looked at the fragile, hopeful creature. In this society, being quirkless was a death sentence. It was almost as bad as having a quirk that hurt you. Izuku, Tuya tested the name. What's your name? Izuku asked. Mommy calls you the patient, but that's a silly name. Tuya opened his mouth to say Tuya. The name was right there, but Tuya was the son of endeavor. Tuya was the failure. Tuya was the boy who cried on Sokoto Peak. Tuya was dead. He looked at the burns he could feel throbbing beneath the bandages. He looked at the plastic soldier with the missing arm. I don't have a name, Tuya lied. Izuku frowned. Everyone has a name. Even dogs. I'm not a dog. You need a name, Izuku insisted. He looked around the room for inspiration. He looked at the poster, the window, the lamp. Then he looked at Tuya's hair, which was originally red, but turning stark white from the stress, and currently singed black and gray. He looked at the bandages. What about Nichan? Izuku suggested. Tuya blinked. Big brother? I always wanted a big brother, Izuku said matter-of-factly. Kaken has a big brother, but he's mean. You're not mean. You're just crispy. Crispy. Tuya snorted. This kid was ridiculous. I can't be your brother, kid. I'm just passing through. Mommy made soup, Izuku countered, as if soup was a binding legal contract of adoption. And she put out the guest futon. You're staying. Inko walked back into the room then, carrying a tray with a steaming bowl and a glass of water. She saw Izuku standing by the bed and the soldier on the mattress. She smiled, relieved that Tuya hadn't incinerated her son. Izuku, let him eat, she chided gently. Okay. Bye, Nichan. Izuku waved and scampered out of the room, vibrating with energy. Inko set the tray on the nightstand. She sat down and helped Tuya sit up slightly, adjusting the pillows. Nichan? She asked, arching an eyebrow. He's delusional, Tuya muttered, though he didn't push the green soldier away. He picked it up, turning it over in his bandaged fingers. Inko watched him eat the soup. He ate ravenously, his hands shaking. She waited until he was finished, until the color had returned slightly to his pale face. I need to know, Inko said quietly. Not for the police. But for me. If you stay here, are you in danger? Is someone coming for you? Tuya looked at the empty bowl. The man who raised me, he thinks I'm dead. He won't look for me. If he thinks I'm dead, I'm safe. Inko absorbed this. She reached out and placed her hand over his. Then he's dead to us too. Tuya looked at her hand. It was soft. It didn't burn. I can't pay you, he said. I didn't ask you to. I have a fire quirk, he confessed. It hurts me. That's why I look like this. My body can't handle it. If I lose control, I could burn your apartment down. Inko didn't flinch. I can pull small objects toward me, she said, demonstrating by levitating the empty soup bowl a few inches. My husband breathes fire. Izuku, well, we're waiting on Izuku. We're a fire hazard household anyway. We have extinguishers in every room. It's not the same, Tuya argued. I'm broken. I was made wrong. You are not made wrong, Inko said fiercely. She squeezed his hand. You are hurt. There is a difference. She stood up, taking the tray. You need to rest. Your body has a lot of healing to do. We can figure out the rest later. She moved to the door, turning off the main light, leaving only a small night light shaped like a star. Inko-san? Tuya called out before she closed the door. She paused. Yes? My name. He swallowed, his throat clicking. I don't want to use my old one. But the kid. He needs something to call me if I'm crashing here for a bit. Inko smiled. It was the warmest thing Tuya had ever seen, warmer than any fire. What do you want to be called? Tuya looked at the green soldier. He thought about the fire. He thought about the ash. He thought about the boy who burned on the mountain and the boy who woke up in this room. Hero, he said. It was a fragment of a word. Hero. A mockery? Or a wish? He wasn't sure. But it sounded like a name that didn't belong to the Todoroki family. Hero, Inko tested it. It's a good name. Good night, Hiro-kun. The door clicked shut. Tuya, no, Hiro, lay in the semi-darkness. He listened to the rain against the window. He listened to the muffled sounds of the TV in the living room, the sound of Izuku laughing at a cartoon, the sound of Inko washing dishes. Domestic sounds. Safe sounds. He brought the green soldier up to his face. It was ugly. It was broken. Just fights different, he whispered to himself. He clutched the toy to his chest, closed his eyes, and for the first time in his life, he slept without dreaming of fire. 2 weeks later, the healing process was slow. The burns on his jaw and neck were scabbing over, turning into thick, purplish keloids that tugged when he turned his head. Inko changed his dressings daily with a patience that baffled him. He learned the rhythm of the Midoriya household. Inko worked part-time doing transcription work from home so she could watch Izuku. Izuku went to kindergarten in the mornings and spent his afternoons vibrating with anxiety and excitement about heroes. Hiro mostly stayed in the bedroom. He wasn't ready to face the world. He wasn't ready to look in a mirror. But Izuku didn't care about boundaries. The door creaked open. It was 4 p.m. Cartoon time. Hiro and I. Izuku bounded in. He was holding a crayon drawing. I drew you. Hiro sat up, wincing as the skin on his chest pulled. He was wearing one of Inko's husband's old t-shirts. It was too big, hanging off his skeletal frame. Let's see it, Hiro grunted. Izuku proudly displayed the paper. It was a crude drawing of 3 stick figures holding hands. One was Inko, identifiable by the green triangle hair. One was Izuku, small green blob, and the tall one in the middle was black and blue with red stitches. You made me look like a zombie, Hiro critiqued. No! That's the cool fire skin, Izuku defended. And look! I gave you a cape. I don't wear a cape. Capes are for show-offs. All Might wears a cape. Exactly. Show-off. Izuku puffed up his cheeks. Take it back. All Might is the coolest. He's a corporate shill who smiles too much, Hiro deadpanned. He found an odd satisfaction in corrupting Izuku's innocent worship of Hiro's society, dropping tiny pellets of cynicism. What's a shill? It means he sells chips. I like chips. Inko appeared in the doorway, a basket of laundry in her hip. Hiro, stop radicalizing my 4-year-old against the symbol of peace. Just teaching him critical thinking, Inko-san, Hiro smirked. The expression felt strange on his scarred face, but less painful than before. Inko rolled her eyes, but she was smiling. Dinner in an hour. Katsudan again. Izuku's request. Yes. Izuku cheered. Can you watch him for 20 minutes while I run to the corner store? We're out of milk, Inko asked. Hiro froze. Being alone with the kid. Responsibility. I'm not a babysitter, he muttered. You're his big brother, aren't you? Inko challenged lightly. Besides, you need to leave this room eventually. Just sit in the living room. Make sure he doesn't try to fly off the couch. Inko grabbed her purse and vanished before he could protest. Hiro sighed and swung his legs off the bed. He stood up, his joints popping. He walked into the living room. It was bright. Too bright. He squinted. Izuku was already on the floor, setting up an elaborate battle scene with his toys. Hiro and I, play the villain. Izuku commanded, holding out a plastic monster. Hiro took the monster. He sat on the floor, his back against the sofa. Fine. What's my motivation? Why am I attacking the city? Do I want money? Revenge? Or am I just a victim of a society that prioritizes quirks over humanity? Izuku blinked. You want the cookies, Hiro chuckled darkly. Right. The cookies. Give me the cookies, All Might, or I'll burn the bank. They played for 10 minutes. It was tolerable. Actually, it was distracting. For a moment, Hiro forgot the burning itch of his skin. Then, the front door rattled. Hiro tensed. Inko had a key. She wouldn't rattle it. Mommy? Izuku looked up. The door handle jiggled aggressively. Then, a heavy pounding. Open up! Neighborhood watch! We had a report of a suspicious person entering this residence 2 weeks ago. Hiro's blood ran cold. The neighborhood watch? Or police? Or Endeavor's spies? He stood up instantly, ignoring the pain. He grabbed Izuku and shoved him behind the sofa. Stay there, he hissed. Don't make a sound. Hiro and I? Izuku whimpered. Quiet. Hiro moved to the door. His heart was hammering against his ribs. He felt the heat rising in his palms. His quirk, it was reacting to his fear. Blue smoke began to curl from his fingertips. No, not here. Not in front of the kid. Mrs. Midoriya? The voice shouted again. We know you're in there. Hiro looked through the peephole. It wasn't the police. It was a man in a cheap suit, flanked by 2 rough-looking guys. Not heroes. Loan sharks? Or just nosy neighbors with a grudge? It didn't matter. They were a threat. Hiro unlocked the deadbolt and threw the door open. The 3 men stumbled back, surprised. They expected a timid woman. Instead, they were face to face with a teenager who looked like he had crawled out of a cremation oven. Hiro stood in the doorway, blocking their view of the apartment. He let the blue smoke drift lazily from his hands. He narrowed his turquoise eyes, the only part of him that was undeniably Todoroki. Mrs. Midoriya is out, Hiro said, his voice dropping to a gravelly low. Who are you? The lead man swallowed, eyeing the scars and the smoke. We're collecting for the neighborhood association fee. And we heard rumors of a squatter. No squatter, Hiro said calmly. He raised his hand, letting a small, concentrated flame dance on his index finger. It wasn't the raging inferno of Sokoto Peak. It was controlled. Sharp. Dangerous. Just family. And we don't pay fees to people who bang on doors like thugs. The heat coming off the small flame was intense. The men felt it from 3 feet away. Our mistake, the man stammered. We'll come back when the lady is home. Don't, Hiro said. He crushed the flame in his fist, sending a puff of ash into the man's face. Get lost. The men scrambled away, tripping over themselves to get down the hallway. Hiro watched them go. He waited until they turned the corner. Then, he slammed the door shut and locked it. He leaned his forehead against the cool metal of the door, breathing hard. His hand was trembling. His skin burned, but he hadn't lost control. He had protected the territory. Hiro and I? He turned around. Izuku was peeking over the top of the sofa, eyes wide. Did you burn them? Izuku asked. No, Hiro exhaled. just scared them. Izuku scrambled over the couch and ran to him. He hugged Hiro's leg, burying his face in the baggy jeans. You saved us! Izuku cheered. You were so cool. You were like, super scary, but cool. Hiro looked down at the broccoli-haired boy clinging to his leg. He felt a strange warmth in his chest that had nothing to do with his quirk. He reached down and awkwardly patted Izuku's head. Yeah, well, Hiro muttered. Someone has to keep the pests away. The door unlocked again. Inko bustled in, breathless, holding a gallon of milk. I saw 3 men running down the stairs looking terrified, she said, eyeing Hiro. Everything okay? Hiro looked at Inko, then down at Izuku, who was beaming up at him. Yeah, Hiro said. A genuine, small smile tugged at the corner of his stapled mouth. Everything's fine. We're just waiting for dinner. Inko looked at the smoke still lingering near the ceiling, then at the protective hand Hiro kept on Izuku's shoulder. Her expression softened. Okay, she said. Wash up. Katsudon will be ready in 20. Hiro walked back toward the bedroom, Izuku trailing behind him like a duckling. He wasn't Tuya Todoroki anymore. That boy had burned away. He was Hiro. He was Nichan. He was the one who would burn the world down if it tried to touch the small, green family. For the first time in his life, the fire inside him didn't feel like a curse. It felt like a promise. 10 years is a long time to be dead. For the world, Tuya Todoroki was a tragedy, a cautionary tale whispered in the hallowed halls of the Todoroki estate, a small shrine gathering dust in a cold room. He was a memory that Endeavor tried to burn away with higher output and fiercer ambitions. But for the residents of a cramped, second-floor apartment in the Musudafu suburbs, the boy who burned was simply Hiro. Hiro, who was 23 years old. Hiro, who smelled permanently of antiseptic ointment and cheap tobacco. Hiro, who worked the graveyard shift at the 24-hour convenience store 3 blocks away because the fluorescent lights didn't judge his staples, and the customers at 3 a.m. were usually too drunk or too tired to stare at the patchwork ruin of his jaw. The alarm clock on the floor buzzed. A violent plastic sound. Hiro slammed a hand down on it. Smoke curled from his palm, leaving a faint scorch mark on the snooze button. Damn it, he rasped, his voice a gravelly friction of scar tissue and sleep. He sat up, the motion pulling at the skin of his abdomen. Even after a decade, his body felt like a suit 2 sizes too small. The staples held him together, silver stitches in a quilt of purple and healthy pale skin. He ran a hand through his hair. It was black. He dyed it every Sunday in the bathroom sink, scrubbing until the water ran like ink, hiding the white roots that were the only genetic proof of his mother's ice. He stood up and walked to the small mirror hanging on the back of the door. He didn't look at his reflection. He had trained himself out of that years ago. He looked through the reflection, checking the staples. 2 under the left eye were loose. He'd need to tighten them. Hiro? Are you up? Inko's voice drifted through the thin walls. Yeah. I'm up, he called back. He grabbed a black hoodie from the floor, his armor against the world, and pulled it on. He stepped out into the living room. The apartment was small, cluttered, and overwhelmingly warm. Not temperature-wise, but feeling-wise. There were photos everywhere. Izuku's graduation from elementary school. Inko and Hiro cooking, Hiro's back turned to the camera. A framed drawing of All Might that Izuku had made when he was 6. Inko was at the stove, flipping eggs. She looked older than she should. 10 years of raising a quirkless son and hiding a dead boy had etched fine lines around her eyes, but her smile was the same. You're late, she said gently. Coffee is in the pot, Hiro grunted, pouring a mug of black sludge. Shift ran long. New guy doesn't know how to stock the shelves. I had to redo the entire beverage section. You work too hard, Inko sighed. You know, Mrs. Tanaka next door asked about you again. She thinks you're a handsome young man, scars and all. Her daughter. Pass, Hiro deadpanned, taking a sip of the scalding coffee. I'm not exactly boyfriend material, Inko. Unless she's into guys who look like they lost a fight with a lawnmower. Hiro and I. The bathroom door flew open, and a blur of black uniform and green curls shot out. Izuku Midoriya was 14 now. He was scrawny, trembling with nervous energy, and possessed eyes that were too big for his face. He was frantically tying a red tie that refused to cooperate. Morning, Zuku, Hiro said, leaning against the counter. You look like you're choking yourself. Let me. Izuku stopped, panting. I'm gonna be late. The bell rings in 20 minutes and I haven't reviewed my notes for the English test, and Hiro set his coffee down and batted Izuku's hands away. With practiced, dexterous fingers, surprising for hands so scarred, he fixed the knot in seconds. Breathe, kid. You're gonna pass out before you get to the train. Izuku took a deep breath, inhaling the scent of Hiro's coffee and the faint, underlying smell of smoke. It grounded him. It always did. Thanks, Hiro, and I. Eat your toast, Hiro commanded, shoving a plate into Izuku's hands. And don't run to the station. You trip over your own feet when you run. I do not. Last Tuesday. The curb. You ripped your pants. Izuku turned bright red. That was a tactical roll. Sure. Tactical. Hiro smirked. It was a crooked, painful thing, but it reached his eyes. He watched Izuku scarf down the toast. He felt that familiar surge of protectiveness, a hot coil in his gut. Izuku was quirkless. In a world of superheroes and genetic lotteries, Izuku was walking through a battlefield without armor. And he was so soft. He still cried at sad commercials. He still muttered to himself. He still worshipped the very society that rejected him. I'm off, Izuku announced, grabbing his yellow backpack. See you tonight. Hey, Hiro called out. Izuku paused at the door. Keep your head down, Hiro said, his voice dropping an octave. Don't let the explosive brat give you trouble. Izuku's smile faltered for a fraction of a second. Kaken is, he's just focused. It's fine. Bye. The door slammed. Hiro stared at the wood grain. The smile dropped from his face instantly. He's getting worse, Hiro murmured. Inko turned off the stove. Her shoulders slumped. Bakugo-kun? Or Izuku? Both. The blonde Pomeranian is getting more aggressive. I saw the burns on Izuku's gym uniform last week. And Izuku? He's getting more desperate. He's looking at Yue like it's heaven, Inko. He thinks if he just tries hard enough, physics will stop applying to him. Inko sat down at the small table, putting her head in her hands. I don't know what to do, Hiro. I can't crush his dream. I'm his mother. But I don't want him to die. Hiro walked over and placed a hand on her shoulder. The heat of his palm was controlled, comforting. He won't die, Hiro promised. The blue in his eyes darkened, shifting from the ocean to the abyss. I won't let him. The afternoon sun was brutal. It beat down on the asphalt, making the air shimmer. Hiro hated the day. The sun reminded him of fire he couldn't control. He preferred the neon cold of the night. But today was Tuesday, and on Tuesdays Izuku had a tendency to lose his lunch money or come home with accidental bruises. Hiro adjusted his hood, keeping his head low as he walked toward Aldera Junior High. He wore long sleeves despite the heat, hiding the purple patchwork of his arms. He looked like a delinquent, a dropout, the kind of person mothers pulled their children away from. Good. Fear was a useful currency. He leaned against the brick wall outside the school gates, lighting a cigarette. He didn't really smoke for the nicotine. He smoked because the smell masked the scent of his own burning flesh on bad days. The bell rang. A flood of students in black uniforms poured out. They were loud, obnoxious, full of quirks and hormones. Hiro scanned the crowd. He saw a guy with long fingers. A girl who could detach her eyes. Trash. All of them, generic extras in a play they thought they were starring in. Then he saw the ash-blonde spikes. Katsuki Bakugo walked like he owned the sidewalk. He had two lackeys trailing him, laughing at something he said. Bakugo wasn't laughing. He was smirking, kicking a soda can with unnecessary violence. And there, trailing 50 feet behind, was Izuku. Izuku was looking at the ground. He wasn't walking, he was trudging. He looked like he was carrying the weight of the world in that yellow backpack. Hiro narrowed his eyes. He dropped the cigarette and crushed it under his boot. He saw Bakugo stop. He saw Bakugo turn around and wait for Izuku to catch up. He saw the explosion, small, popping sparks in Bakugo's palm, and the way Izuku flinched. Hiro moved. He didn't run. He flowed. He cut across the street, ignoring the traffic light, a silent shadow in the glare of the day. Take a swan dive off the roof of the building, Bakugo was saying, his voice carrying the cruel nonchalance of someone who has never been punched in the face. Maybe you'll get a quirk in the next life. Izuku stood there, trembling. He was clutching a burned notebook to his chest. His mouth opened and closed, but no sound came out. Bakugo turned to leave, his lackeys snickering. Hey! The word wasn't shouted. It was spoken with the quiet intensity of a gas leak before a spark. Bakugo stopped. He turned around, annoyed. Ha! Who the hell are? He froze. Hiro stood between Izuku and Bakugo. He was taller than the middle schoolers, lanky, yes, but he held himself with a jagged menace. He had pulled his hood back slightly. Just enough. The staples on his jaw caught the sunlight. The purple, gnarled skin under his eyes stretched as he stared down at the blond boy. What did you just say? Hiro asked. Bakugo's eyes widened. He was a bully, and he was arrogant, but he had good instincts. His instincts were currently screaming predator. I asked you a question. Hiro took a step forward. The air temperature around them spiked. It went from a hot afternoon to the inside of an oven in seconds. The asphalt near Hiro's boots began to soften. Hiro and I don't. Izuku gasped, grabbing the back of Hiro's hoodie. Stay back, Zuku, Hiro warned, not looking away from Bakugo. This brat thinks suicide is a joke. I want to hear the punchline. Bakugo grit his teeth. Sparks popped in his palms, but they were erratic. I'm just telling the nerd the truth. He's useless. He's a pebble in the road. A pebble? Hiro tilted his head. A wisp of blue smoke escaped from the corner of his mouth. You think having a quirk makes you a god? You think because you can make fireworks you matter? Hiro stepped into Bakugo's personal space. The lackeys had already backed away, terrified. Let me tell you something about fire, kid, Hiro whispered, leaning down so only Bakugo could hear. It burns everyone. It doesn't care how special you think you are. You keep pushing him, you keep talking about roofs, and you're going to find out that there are things in this world much hotter than your little sparklers. He placed a hand on Bakugo's shoulder. He didn't use his quirk. He just let his natural body temperature, which ran feverishly high, seep through the fabric. Don't touch him again, Hiro said. Or I'll turn you into ash. Bakugo slapped the hand away, stepping back. He was sweating. Genuine fear flickered in his red eyes, quickly masked by anger. Don't touch me, you freak! Bakugo shouted, but his voice cracked. He glared at Izuku. You need your zombie brother to fight your battles, Deku? Pathetic. Bakugo spun around and stomped away, walking fast. Too fast. He was running away. Hiro watched him go, his eyes cold. Hiro and I. Izuku's voice was small. Hiro exhaled, forcing his body temperature down. The oppressive heat dissipated. He turned to Izuku. You okay? Izuku looked at the burned notebook in his hands. Hiro analysis for the future. Number 13. He burned it, Izuku whispered. And he told me. I heard what he said, Hiro said darkly. If I wasn't trying to keep a low profile, I would have melted his shoes to the pavement. You can't do that. You'd get arrested. Izuku cried, panic rising. And then Mom would be sad, and you'd go to jail, and I didn't do it, did I? Hiro interrupted. He ruffled Izuku's hair, messing up the green curls. Come on. Let's go home. I'll buy you a pork bun. They walked in silence for a while. The city was busy. Heroes were patrolling. Mount Lady zoomed by in the distance, waving to a crowd. Why do you let him treat you like that? Hiro asked eventually. Izuku gripped the straps of his backpack. He's not. He's amazing, Hiro and I. His quirk is amazing. He's going to be a top hero. He's just intense. He's a sociopath, Hiro corrected. And his quirk is flashy trash. Great for destroying things. Bad for saving people. But, stop worshipping him, Izuku. And stop worshipping them. Hiro gestured vaguely at a billboard featuring a hero endorsing a brand of shampoo. They don't care about you. If you fell off a roof like that blonde brat suggested, they wouldn't even pause their commercials. That's not true. Izuku stopped walking. He looked up at Hiro, his eyes wet with angry tears. All Might would care. Heroes save people. That's what they do. Hero looked down at his brother. He saw the desperate belief, the need for the world to be good. It made his chest ache. It reminded him of a boy with red hair standing on a mountain, waiting for a father who never came. All Might saves people who make for good TV, Hero said quietly. Where was he when you were getting beaten up behind the gym? Where was he when we couldn't pay rent last winter? We save ourselves, Izuku. We're the only ones who save us. Izuku stared at him, hurt flashing across his face. You're wrong. I'm going to prove you wrong. I'm going to get into UA. I'm going to be a hero, and I'm going to save everyone. Even you. Hero flinched. Even you. I don't need saving, Hero lied. Come on. Inko's making fish. Dinner was a battlefield of silence. The clinking of chopsticks against ceramic bowls was the only sound in the apartment. The TV was off. Inko had found the career aptitude form crumpled in the bottom of Izuku's bag. It was smoothed out now, sitting in the center of the table like a declaration of war. First choice, UA High School. Hero course. Inko put down her bowl. She looked like she was about to cry. Izuku, honey. Izuku stopped eating. He stared at his rice. I know. I know it's hard. I know the acceptance rate is impossible. But, it's not about the acceptance rate, Hero said from across the table. He was picking at his food. It's about reality. You're quirkless. You can't be a hero without power. It's suicide. You sound just like Kaken, Izuku muttered. The room froze. Hero's eyes narrowed. I sound like someone who doesn't want to identify your body in a morgue. Hero, please, Inko whispered. No, Mom. Izuku stood up, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. Why doesn't anyone believe in me? Just because I don't have fire or ice or super strength. There are other ways to fight. There's support items. There's strategy. You're fighting villains who can level city blocks with a sneeze. Hero slammed his hand on the table. You think strategy works when a Nomu is ripping your arms off? You think a gadget is going to stop someone like him? Hero stopped himself. He almost said endeavor. Like who? Izuku challenged. Like the villains you're so afraid of? You hate heroes so much, but you act like the villains are unstoppable gods. If heroes are fake, and villains are gods, then what's the point? Why do we even try? Because the system is rigged. Hero shouted back. The heroes create the villains, Izuku. It's a cycle of garbage. And they chew up people like you, good, naive people, and spit them out. I'm not naive. Izuku yelled. I just want to help people. Is that so wrong? I want to be like All Might. I want to smile and say I am here so people don't have to be scared anymore. Like you were scared when you came here. Silence. Absolute, ringing silence. Inko gasped. Hero's face went blank. The anger drained away, leaving a cold, hollow mask. He touched the staples on his cheek. I wasn't scared, Hero said, his voice devoid of emotion. I was dying. There's a difference. He stood up. I have work. Don't wait up. He walked out of the apartment, grabbing his hoodie. The door closed softly behind him. Izuku stood there, trembling, tears finally spilling over. I didn't mean. I didn't. Inko stood up and wrapped her arms around him. It's okay, Izuku. He knows. He's terrified for you. We both are. Hero didn't go to work. He called in sick. He didn't care if he got fired. There were other convenience stores. He walked. He walked through the dark underpasses, kicking empty cans. The rage was buzzing under his skin, a hive of bees made of fire. You sound just like Kaken. That hurt. That hurt more than the staples. To be compared to that bully. To be seen as the obstacle. I gave up everything for you, Hero muttered to the damp walls of the tunnel. I threw away my name. I work a dead-end job. I eat garbage food. Also you can grow up safe. And you want to jump into the fire. He reached into his pocket for a cigarette, but the pack was empty. He crushed it in his fist and incinerated it with a flash of blue. He needed to blow off steam. Maybe find a mugger. Someone who deserved it. Just a little burn. Just a reminder that he was dangerous. He emerged from the tunnel into the shopping district. It was late afternoon. He had lost track of time. The sun was setting. Suddenly, a boom echoed through the streets. People started screaming. A crowd was rushing toward the noise, phones out, hungry for spectacle. A villain attack! Someone shouted. In the shopping district, Hiro hesitated. He should go the other way. He should go home. But the smoke rising above the buildings was thick and black. It wasn't his smoke. It was dirty. Curiosity, or perhaps instinct, pulled him forward. He merged with the crowd, keeping his hood up. He pushed his way to the front of the police barricade. The scene was chaos. The alleyway was engulfed in flames, orange, weak flames, but enough to cause panic. In the center of the inferno was a monster made of sludge. A shifting, green-brown liquid that had eyes and teeth, and the sludge had a hostage. Hiro squinted against the glare. The hostage was thrashing, setting off explosions. Bakugo. Hiro felt a jolt of grim satisfaction. The brat had finally bitten off more than he could chew. Where are the heroes? A woman next to him screamed. Hiro looked around. They were there. Death Arms. Kamui Woods. Auntie Lady. They were standing behind the police tape, doing nothing. The wind is too strong. My quirk isn't suitable for this. I can't get close to the fire, Hiro scoffed. Useless. All of them. Cowards protecting their rankings. He watched the sludge villain suffocate Bakugo. He saw the terror in the blonde boy's eyes. The arrogance was gone. He was just a kid dying in public while the heroes managed crowd control. This is the society you love, Izuku, Hiro thought bitterly. Watch closely. And then, the yellow police tape snapped. A small figure sprinted out of the crowd. No powers. No plan. Just a yellow backpack and a desperate scream. Hiro's heart stopped. Izuku! The scream ripped from Hiro's throat before he could stop it. He saw his brother running toward the sludge monster. He saw Izuku throw his backpack. It hit the villain in the eye. The sludge recoiled. Izuku clawed at the sludge, trying to free Bakugo's mouth. What are you doing here? Bakugo gurgled. My legs moved on their own. Izuku cried, tears streaming down his face. You looked like you were asking for help. Hiro was moving. He didn't think. He didn't care about the cameras. He didn't care about Endeavor seeing him. He didn't care about his secret identity. Izuku was going to die. The sludge villain was recovering. A massive tendril of muck raised up, poised to crush the green-haired boy flat. Get away from him! Hiro leaped over the barricade. He ignited. For the first time in 10 years he didn't hold back. He didn't trickle the heat. He let it flood. A wave of blue fire erupted from his body, a spiraling vortex of azure hellfire. It didn't aim at the villain directly. It aimed at the space between the villain and Izuku. The heat was instantaneous. The windows of the nearby shops shattered. The orange flames of the alley were swallowed whole by the blue dominance. The sludge villain screeched as the moisture in its body instantly evaporated near the heat wall. It recoiled, dropping Bakugo partially. Hiro and I? Izuku gasped, shielding his face from the intense heat. Hiro landed in a crouch in front of the boys, his arms spread wide. Blue flames danced along his shoulders, his arms, his hair. His hood had burned away. His scars were glowing, the staples glinting like teeth. He looked like a demon. Touch my brother, Hiro snarled, his voice distorted by the roar of the fire, and I will boil you until there is nothing left but steam. The heroes watched in stunned silence. The crowd gasped. Who was this? A new hero? A villain? The sludge villain hesitated, fearful of the blue flame, but Hiro was at his limit. His skin was sizzling. The smell of burning flesh, his own, filled his nose. His vision was blurring. He couldn't keep this up. He was going to pass out, and then they would all die. I'm not strong enough, Hiro thought, panic rising. I'm just like before. I'm burning up. I am here. The voice boomed like thunder, cutting through the roar of the fire. A gust of wind pressure hit them, so powerful it nearly blew the blue fire out. All Might. The symbol of peace appeared in a blur. He didn't care about the fire. He didn't care about the sludge. He punched. Detroit. Smash! The air pressure alone obliterated the sludge villain. The monster scattered into 1,000 droplets. The fire was snuffed out by the vacuum. The clouds in the sky parted. It began to rain. Hiro was thrown back by the force of the wind. He tumbled across the asphalt, hitting a wall hard. He lay there, gasping, smoke rising from his entire body. His skin felt like it was melting. He looked up. All Might stood tall in the center of the devastation, steam rising from his massive form. He was holding both Izuku and Bakugo by the collars of their shirts, safe. The crowd erupted into cheers. All Might! All Might! Hiro watched. He saw Izuku looking up at All Might with stars in his eyes. The same look he had as a toddler. The look of absolute worship. Hiro closed his eyes. He saved him. The thought was a jagged shard of glass in his heart. I tried. I burned myself alive again. And I couldn't do it. But he just showed up and punched the air, and everyone loves him. Relief washed over him. Izuku was alive. But riding the coattails of that relief was a dark, poisonous envy. And hatred. Pure, distilled hatred for the man who cast a shadow so large that no one else could breathe in it. A hero approached Hiro. It was Kamui Woods. You there? That was reckless use of a quirk. You could have hurt the civilians. Identify yourself. Hiro forced his eyes open. He looked at the wooden hero. He stood up shakily. His hoodie was gone. His scars were on display for the world. I saved them, Hiro rasped, spitting a glob of blood onto the pavement. While you stood there and watched. You, leave him alone. Izuku's voice. Izuku broke away from All Might and ran to Hiro. He grabbed Hiro's arm, ignoring the heat still radiating from it. He's my brother! He was protecting me. Izuku yelled at the heroes. All Might turned, his blue eyes locking onto Hiro. He seemed to study the scars, the turquoise eyes, the defiant stance. A flicker of recognition? Confusion? Crossed the hero's face. Young man, All Might rumbled, taking a step forward. That fire. It is dangerous to use it so recklessly. Hiro slapped Izuku's hand away gently, to protect him from the heat, and glared at All Might. Don't talk to me, Hiro hissed. You're late. You're always late. He turned and limped away. The crowd parted for him, terrified by his appearance, and the memory of the blue flames. Wait! Kamui Woods shouted. We need a statement. Let him go, Death Arms grunted. He looks like he needs a hospital, not a lecture. We have the villain. We have the kids. Hiro kept walking. He didn't look back. That night, the apartment was quiet. Inko was sobbing in the kitchen, hugging Izuku so tight he was turning blue. She had seen the news. Hiro was on the balcony. He had treated his burns. Fresh bandages wrapped his arms and neck. He was wearing a fresh shirt. He leaned against the railing, looking out at the city lights. They twinkled like stars, indifferent to the chaos below. The sliding door opened. Izuku stepped out. Hiro and I? Hiro didn't turn around. Go inside, Izuku. It's cold. You used your fire, Izuku said softly. You used a lot of it. I lost my temper. You saved me. Before All Might came. You stopped the slime guy from killing Kaken. Hiro gripped the railing. I didn't finish the job. All Might did. Izuku walked up beside him. He looked at his brother's profile, the staples, the sharp nose, the sadness that seemed etched into his bones. You're my hero, Hiro and I, Izuku said. Hiro laughed. It was a dry, cracking sound. Don't insult me. I mean it. You jumped in when the pros didn't. That's what a real hero does. Hiro looked at Izuku. The boy's eyes were fierce. Izuku, Hiro said, his voice serious. Today proved everything I told you. You almost died. If All Might hadn't shown up, we both would be dead. Do you understand that? You don't have power. You can't be a hero. Izuku looked down at his hands. All Might, he talked to me. After you left, Hiro stiffened. What did he say? Did he tell you to give up? Izuku hesitated. He remembered the emaciated form of All Might, the secret of One for All, the offer that had changed his life an hour ago. You can be a hero. But looking at Hiro, scarred, bitter, loving Hiro, Izuku couldn't tell him. Not yet. Hiro hated All Might. If Hiro knew Izuku was going to inherit All Might's power, it might break them apart. He scolded me, Izuku lied. A half-truth. For being reckless. Hiro exhaled, a puff of smoke vanishing into the night air. Good. Maybe you'll listen to him. Hiro turned back to the city. His eyes narrowed. I'm going to protect you, Izuku, Hiro vowed, his voice low. From the villains. From the heroes. From all of it. But you have to promise me you won't do something that stupid again. Izuku gripped the railing. He crossed his fingers behind his back. I promise I won't do anything stupid, Izuku said. I'm going to accept his power. I'm going to enter UA. And I'm going to show you that heroes can be real. Good, Hiro said. He ruffled Izuku's hair. Now go to bed. I have to go to work tomorrow. If I still have a job. Izuku went inside. Hiro stayed on the balcony. He looked at his hand. He summoned a small flame. It was blue, beautiful, and deadly. He remembered the feeling of the fire today. The power. The fear in the villain's eyes. For 10 years, he had suppressed Tuya Todoroki. But today, Tuya had come out to play. And the terrifying part was, Hiro missed him. Endeavor is out there, Hiro thought, staring at a distant skyscraper with a burning billboard. All Might is out there, and they are creating a world where kids like Izuku have to jump into fires to feel worth something. The flame in his hand flared brighter. If the world is going to burn my brother, Hiro decided, then I'll burn the world first. The months that followed the sludge villain incident were a blur of salt, sweat, and secrets. For Izuku Midoriya, the world had narrowed down to the Dagoba Municipal Beach Park. It was a graveyard of humanity's excess, rotting tires, rusted refrigerators, broken office chairs, and drift logs. It was ugly, smelly, and massive. And it was his sanctuary. Every morning, before the sun dared to peek over the horizon, Izuku was there. He hauled trash that weighed more than he did, his muscles screaming, his lungs burning. He was sculpting a vessel. All Might had told him that One for All was too great a power for a weak body. If he took it now, his limbs would explode. So, Izuku dragged a rusted safe across the sand, gritting his teeth. I have to be ready, he chanted internally. 10 months. UA entrance exam. I have to be a vessel. He paused to wipe sweat from his forehead, looking at his hands. They were blistered and calloused, shaking with exertion. Young Midoriya, All Might, in his skeletal, true form, sat atop a pile of garbage, looking like a deflated scarecrow on a throne of refuse. You're lagging. That refrigerator isn't going to move itself to the recycling truck. Passion. Drive. Yes, All Might. Izuku squeaked, grabbing the strap of the dolly again. He couldn't tell anyone. Not his mom. Not even Hiro and I. The thought of Hiro sent a pang of guilt through Izuku's chest. Hiro had saved him. Hiro had practically incinerated a villain for him. And in return, Izuku was keeping the biggest secret in the world from him. Hiro hates heroes, Izuku thought as he heaved the fridge. If he knew I was training with All Might, if he knew I was getting a quirk from the man he despises, he pushed the thought away. He would tell him eventually. When he got into UA. When he proved that power could be good. When he could stand in front of his brother and say, I am here, and make Hiro believe it. For Hiro, formerly Tuya, the world had not narrowed. It had darkened. The incident with the sludge villain had popped a cork on a bottle of rage he had kept sealed for a decade. Using his fire, really using it, had been an intoxicating agony. The heat that lived in his bones, usually a dull ache, had turned into a restless, thrumming vibration. He couldn't sleep. It was 2 a.m. The apartment was silent. Inko was snoring softly in her room. Izuku was dead to the world on the sofa? He had been falling asleep everywhere lately, exhausted from whatever secret training he was doing. Hiro lay in the bottom bunk of the bed they used to share before Izuku got too big, staring at the slats of the frame above him. His skin itched. Not an external itch, but an internal one. The scars felt tight. The fire wanted out. He sat up, his joints popping. He walked to the living room. Izuku was sprawled on the couch, one arm hanging off the side, drool pooling on a cushion. He was wearing a t-shirt that was slightly too tight around the shoulders. Hiro paused. The kid is getting bigger, he noted. He had seen Izuku coming home in the mornings, smelling of ocean brine and garbage. He saw the way Izuku winced when he lifted the milk carton. He saw the protein bars hidden in his school bag. He's training, Hiro realized weeks ago. He's trying to build muscle. Probably thinks if he gets strong enough, Yui will let him in on pity. It was heartbreaking. It was futile. But looking at Izuku's peaceful, exhausted face, Hiro couldn't bring himself to stop him. Let the kid dream for a few more months. Reality would crush him soon enough. But while Izuku built himself up, Hiro felt himself fraying. He walked to the Genkan, slipping on his boots. He grabbed a black face mask and a dark hoodie. He needed to walk. He needed the cold air to balance the inferno in his gut. Hiro slipped out of the apartment, locking the door silently behind him. The streets of Muzidafa at night were different than the day. The heroes patrolled the bright districts, the shopping centers, the wealthy neighborhoods. They posed for cameras and stopped flashy robberies. But in the back alleys, in the forgotten residential blocks where the street lights were broken, the shadows were long and deep. Hiro walked with his hands in his pockets. He wasn't looking for trouble. He was just walking, letting the cool night air soothe his feverish skin. He turned a corner into a narrow alleyway behind a row of dive bars. Please! Take it! That's all I have. The voice was female, terrified. Hiro stopped. He leaned against the graffiti-stained wall, blending into the darkness. Further down the alley, 3 men had cornered a woman. She was on the ground, clutching a purse. One man was kicking at her legs. Another was laughing, holding a knife that glinted in the moonlight. Come on, lady. You got jewelry? A ring? The man with the knife sneered. I don't. Check her pockets, the third man grunted. He had a mutation quirk. His arms were covered in scales. Hiro waited. He waited for a hero to drop from the sky. He waited for a patrol car. He waited for the justice that society bragged about. Nothing. Just the sound of the woman sobbing and the men laughing. Trash, Hiro thought. Predators feeding on the weak because they know nobody is watching. The heat in his gut flared. It wasn't painful this time. It was eager. Hiro stepped out of the shadows. Hey! The single word echoed in the narrow space. The 3 men spun around. Get lost, junkie, the knife wielder barked. Unless you want a new smile. Hiro didn't stop walking. He kept his pace slow, rhythmic. The boots clicked against the wet pavement. I asked myself a question today, Hiro said, his voice a low rasp. I asked myself, what happens to the garbage that doesn't get picked up? What is he blabbing about? Scalearm growled. Get him, Scalearm charged. He was big, heavy. He drew back a fist that looked like a sledgehammer. Hiro didn't dodge. He just raised his left hand. Snap! A burst of blue flame, no larger than a candle, erupted from his fingers. But it wasn't a candle. It was a compressed jet of superheated plasma. It hit Scalearm in the chest. The man didn't even scream. The impact blew him backward as if he'd been hit by a truck. He slammed into a dumpster, his shirt incinerated, his scales blackened and cracking. He slumped to the ground, unconscious from the shock. The other 2 men froze. The temperature in the alley skyrocketed. The puddles on the ground began to steam. Hiro lowered his hood. The moonlight caught the staples on his face. His eyes were glowing, 2 rings of turquoise neon in the dark. The answer, Hiro whispered, raising his hand again, palm open, is that you burn it. What are you? The knife man stammered, backing away. You're a villain. Villain. Hiro scoffed. A ring of blue fire ignited around him, illuminating the alley in a ghostly, morbid light. Labels for people who play by the rules. I don't play. He flicked his wrist. A wave of blue fire washed over the ground, cutting off their escape route. It didn't touch the woman. It curled around her like a protective barrier, hot but controlled. Run, Hiro told the men. They tried. They scrambled over the dumpster, screaming as the heat singed their heels. Hiro watched them go. He could have killed them. It would have been easy. Too easy. But killing drew too much attention. Fear lasted longer. He turned to the woman. She was staring at him, wide-eyed, trembling. The blue fire reflected in her eyes made him look like a demon. Go home, Hiro said. He extinguished the flames with a thought. The alley plunged back into darkness. By the time the woman blinked, he was gone. 3 months later. Have you seen this, Inko? Hiro sat at the kitchen table, nursing a cup of coffee. The morning news was playing on the small TV on the counter. Inko peered over his shoulder. Seen what? On the screen, a news anchor was standing in front of a graph showing crime statistics. Police remain baffled by the rise of the so-called Blue Flame vigilante. Operating primarily in the lower districts of Mizurufu, this individual has been linked to over 40 incidents of intervention in the last 3 months. Unlike most vigilantes who seek fame, Blue Flame leaves no signature other than the scorched remains of weaponry and the terrified testimonies of criminals. A blurry photo appeared on screen. It was taken from a security camera. A figure in a black hoodie, surrounded by azure fire. He's violent, the anchor continued. Several criminals have been hospitalized with third-degree burns. Heroes criticize his brutal methods, calling them excessive. Inko frowned. It's scary. A fire quirk like that, it reminds me of. She trailed off, glancing at Hiro. Hiro kept his face neutral. Reminds you of Endeavor? Yes. But colder. Scarier. Inko shivered. I hope the heroes catch him before he kills someone. Vigilantism is illegal for a reason. Maybe he's doing what the heroes won't, Hiro muttered, taking a sip of coffee. Hiro and Izuku burst into the room, looking more ragged than usual. His school uniform was disheveled. He slumped into a chair. You okay, kid? Hiro asked. You look like you wrestled a truck. Just. Izuku lied poorly. Hey, did you guys hear about the vigilante? Just watching it, Hiro pointed toward the TV. What do you think, Mr. Future Hero? Is he a villain? Izuku looked at the screen. He studied the blurry image of the blue fire. I don't think he's a villain, Izuku said slowly. I read the forums. He hasn't killed anyone. And he only targets people who are hurting others. He stopped a gang from burning down a community center last week. Hiro felt a flicker of pride. He gets it. But Izuku continued, his face hardening. He's wrong. Hiro's grip on the mug tightened. Wrong? How? He's hurting people to stop them from hurting people. It's just a cycle of fear, Izuku said passionately. A real hero saves everyone. Even the villains. You have to save their hearts, not just stop their fists. Burning them just makes them hate more. It doesn't solve the problem. Hiro felt a cold anger settle in his stomach. It was the fundamental disconnect between them. Izuku believed people could be fixed. Hiro knew some people just needed to be removed. Saving hearts doesn't work when there's a knife at your throat, Izuku, Hiro said coldly. Sometimes you have to be the monster to scare the other monsters away. That's not true, Izuku argued. All Might punches people through buildings. Hiro snapped. How is that saving their hearts? It's hypocrisy, Izuku. It's just branding. If All Might does it, it's justice. If this guy does it, it's violence. Boys, stop, Inko interjected, sensing the tension. She placed a hand on both their arms. Please. No politics at breakfast. Hiro stood up abruptly. I need a smoke. He walked out to the balcony. He lit a cigarette, his hand shaking slightly. You're wrong, Izuku, he thought, exhaling a cloud of gray smoke that mixed with the blue wisps from his mouth. You're too soft for this world. And that's why I have to be the hard one. He looked at his arm. Under the long sleeve, fresh burns were knitting together. The more he used his power, the more his body deteriorated. The staples were struggling to hold the dead skin to the living. He smelled like burning meat constantly now. He had to use stronger cologne. He was burning the candle at both ends. Working days to pay rent. Being blue flame at night to purge the streets. He didn't know how long he could keep it up. But every time he saw a predator backing down, every time he saw fear in the eyes of a scumbag, he felt useful. He wasn't the failure Tuya anymore. He was the cleanser. Month 8, the breaking point. The beach was almost clear. Izuku was looking less like a soft dumpling and more like a chiseled athlete. But Hiro wasn't watching the beach. He was watching a warehouse on the docks. It was a rainy Tuesday night. 1 a.m. He had tracked a group here. A ring that was smuggling quirk-enhancing drugs. Nasty stuff. The kind that made people lose their minds. Hiro crouched on the roof of the adjacent building. The rain hissed as it hit his skin. He was running a fever. He had been running a fever for a week. Just one more job, he told himself. Burn this nest, and then I'll take a break. He dropped down. He blew the warehouse doors off their hinges with a concentrated blast. Knock knock, he rasped as he stepped into the smoke. There were 10 of them. More than he expected. And they were armed with illegal support gear. It's Blue Flame! One yelled. Shoot him! Bullets whizzed through the air. Hiro dodged, dancing through the gunfire. He was fast, fueled by adrenaline and pain. He unleashed a wave of fire. Prominence burn, a bastardized, smaller version of his father's move. The warehouse lit up. Crates exploded. Men screamed, but one of them, the leader, had a water quirk. A high-pressure cutter. Die, you freak! A jet of water, sharp as a laser, sliced through the fire. Hiro tried to pivot, but his body seized. A cramp. A spasm of his ruined muscles. The water jet clipped him. It sliced through the hoodie, through the skin of his side, deep into the oblique muscle. Hiro grunted, falling to one knee. The pain was blinding. It wasn't the heat he was used to. It was a cold, sharp agony. Got him! The leader cheered. Hiro looked up. His vision swam. Red blood was soaking his black hoodie, mixing with the rain and the ash. I'm going to die here, he thought. Like a stray dog. Then he thought of Izuku. Izuku, who was going to take the entrance exam in 2 months. Izuku, who would be left alone with Inko in a world that wanted to eat them. No. Hiro gritted his teeth so hard a molar cracked. He reached deep inside. Past the pain. Past the limits of his body. He tapped into the core of his fire, the part that turned blue into white. Get away, he screamed. A sphere of superheated air expanded from his body. It evaporated the water jet instantly. It melted the concrete floor. It blasted the smugglers backward, knocking them unconscious with the sheer concussive force of the heat. The warehouse fell silent, save for the crackling of flames. Hiro stood up, swaying. He clutched his side. Blood was pouring out, hot and sticky. He had to move. The police would be here in minutes. He stumbled out into the rain. Every step was torture. He merged with the shadows, dragging himself toward the residential district. Don't pass out. Don't pass out. Just get home. 3:45 a.m. Izuku couldn't sleep. The entrance exam was approaching. He was anxious. He was mentally reviewing English vocabulary. He heard the front door click. It was soft. Careful. Hiro and I? Izuku frowned. Hiro usually came home from his night walks around 2 a.m. It was late. Izuku got up from the couch. He padded softly to the hallway. He saw a trail of dark drops on the linoleum floor. Rain? No. It was too dark. He followed the trail to the bathroom. The door was ajar. Hiro and I? Izuku whispered. He pushed the door open. Hiro was sitting on the edge of the bathtub. He was shirtless. Izuku gasped. He had seen Hiro's scars before. He knew what his brother looked like. But this was different. Hiro's side was a mess. A deep, jagged laceration ran from his ribcage to his hip. It was bleeding sluggishly, but worse were the burns around it, fresh, angry, weeping blisters where Hiro had cauterized his own wound in a panic. Hiro looked up. His skin was deathly pale, making the purple scars look black. His eyes were glassy. Izuku, Hiro slurred. Don't tell Mom. Hiro. Izuku rushed forward, dropping to his knees. His hands hovered over the wound, terrified to touch. What happened? You're bleeding. We need to call an ambulance. No. Hiro grabbed Izuku's wrist. His grip was weak, his hands scorching hot. No ambulance. No police. They'll ask questions. But you're hurt. Izuku was crying now, panic seizing his chest. Who did this? Hiro leaned his head back against the tiles, closing his eyes. He needed a lie. A good one. Got jumped, Hiro rasped. Coming back from the store. A gang. Wanted my wallet. I fought back. You used your quirk, Izuku said, looking at the fresh burns on Hiro's hands. Had to, Hiro coughed. It was self-defense. But if the police see this, they'll arrest me. Unlicensed quirk usage. You know the law, Izuku. I'd go to jail. Who would help Mom with rent? Izuku bit his lip. The logic was sound, but it felt wrong. The wound looked too clean for a street brawl. It looked like a quirk attack. I can't just let you bleed. First aid kit, Hiro instructed, breathing shallowly. Under the sink. Get the disinfectant. The gauze. And the stapler. The stapler? Izuku paled. The medical stapler, genius. Mom keeps one. Use it. Izuku scrambled to get the kit. His hands were shaking. He had watched Inko patch Hiro up before, but he had never done it himself. I can't, Izuku sobbed, holding the stapler. I'll hurt you. Hiro opened one eye. He looked at his little brother. The boy who wanted to save everyone. You want to be a hero, right? Hiro whispered. Heroes have to deal with blood. They have to fix people. Start with me. Izuku froze. He looked at the wound. He looked at Hiro's pain. He took a deep breath. He wiped his tears on his sleeve. His expression shifted. The fear remained, but a steel determination overlaid it. Okay, Izuku said. Okay. I'll do it. He cleaned the wound. Hiro hissed but didn't scream. Izuku applied the disinfectant. Then, with trembling but precise hands, he began to staple the edges of the skin together. Click. 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 The sound was loud in the quiet bathroom. Hiro watched him. He saw the focus in Izuku's eyes. He has the hands of a medic, Hiro thought deliriously. Or a hero. When it was done, Izuku wrapped the torso in bandages. He helped Hiro wash the blood off his skin. He cleaned the floor. They sat on the bathroom floor together, exhausted. You're warm, Izuku said, leaning against the tub. You're burning up. Always am, Hiro muttered. Why didn't you run? Izuku asked quietly. If it was a mugging, you could have just given them the wallet. Hiro looked at the ceiling. I don't run, Izuku. Not anymore. You could have died. Maybe. Don't say that. Izuku turned to him, angry. You can't die. You're my brother. You're all I have besides Mom. Hiro looked at Izuku. He saw the genuine terror of loss. He reached out and placed a hand on Izuku's head. I'm not going anywhere, kid. I'm too stubborn to die. Promise me, Izuku demanded. Promise me you'll stop getting into fights. Promise me you'll run next time. Hiro hesitated. He couldn't promise that. Blue Flame wasn't done. But looking at Izuku's tear-stained face, I promise I'll be more careful, Hiro said. It was the best he could do. Izuku seemed to accept this. He slumped against Hiro's shoulder. You know, Izuku whispered, half asleep now that the adrenaline was fading. The vigilante. Blue Flame. The news said he was seen near the docks tonight. Where you were. Hiro's heart skipped a beat. Coincidence, Hiro said smoothly. Bad neighborhood. Lots of fire quirks out there. Yeah, Izuku yawned. Maybe. Izuku closed his eyes. Hiro stared at the wall. He suspects, Hiro realized. He's smart. He's analyzing it. He wants to believe I'm just his unlucky brother, but the pieces are fitting together. Hiro looked at his bandaged side. He had lied to protect Izuku. Izuku was likely lying about his training to protect Hiro. They were two brothers sitting on a bathroom floor, bound by blood and love, separated by a chasm of secrets. One day, Hiro thought, this is all going to blow up in our faces. But not tonight. Thanks, Dr. Deku, Hiro whispered. Izuku didn't answer. He was asleep. Hiro leaned his head back and listened to the silence, waiting for the dawn that would bring the entrance exam, and the beginning of the end. The next morning, the day of the exam, the sun was bright. Too bright. Izuku stood at the door, wearing his middle school uniform. He looked nauseous. Do you have your pencils? Inko fretted, smoothing his collar. Your ID? A handkerchief? I have everything, Mom. Izuku laughed nervously. Hiro leaned against the doorframe. He looked like death warmed over. He was pale, moving stiffly to hide the stitches in his side, but he was upright. Hey, Hiro said. Izuku looked at him. You didn't sleep, Izuku noted. Neither did you. Hiro reached into his pocket. He pulled out a small charm. It was a cheap, plastic All Might keychain he had bought at the convenience store at 4 a.m. He tossed it to Izuku. Izuku caught it, surprised. Hiro and I? But you hate. I hate the guy, Hiro shrugged. But you think he's the sun and the moon. So, take it. For luck. Izuku stared at the keychain. Then he looked at Hiro with watery eyes. Thank you? Don't cry yet, crybaby. Go pass the damn test. I will. Izuku opened the door. He stepped out into the world. He turned back one last time, beaming. I'll be a hero, Hiro and I. I'll make you proud. He sprinted down the hallway. Hiro watched him go. You already have, kid, Hiro whispered to the empty air. He closed the door. He winced as his side twinged. He walked to the window and looked out. He saw Izuku running down the street, and far in the distance, he saw the UA barrier, shining like a fortress. Go ahead, Izuku, Hiro thought. Go play hero. And I'll stay here in the shadows, cleaning up the mess. He touched the glass, leaving a foggy print that evaporated instantly from the heat of his skin. The game was changing. And Hiro knew, with a sinking feeling, that the fire was only just beginning to spread. The morning of the UA entrance exam did not begin with a fanfare of trumpets. It began with the sound of a very old, very tired sedan engine coughing to life in the pre-dawn grayness. Hiro sat in the driver's seat of Inko's car, gripping the steering wheel. His knuckles were white, contrasting with the black fingerless gloves he wore to hide the burns on his palms. He looked exhausted. The injury on his side from the warehouse raid, now a week old, was healing, but it pulled tight and hot every time he shifted gears. I can take the train, Hiro and I, Izuku said from the passenger seat. He was vibrating. Literally vibrating. His knees were bouncing up and down so fast they were a blur. And get crushed during rush hour? No thanks, Hiro muttered, checking the rearview mirror. Besides, if you pass out from nerves, I'd rather you do it on upholstery I can clean. Izuku managed a weak, watery laugh. He was clutching his yellow backpack like a parachute. He looked pale, skinny, and terrified. But there was something else in his eyes, a hard, diamond-like glint that hadn't been there 10 months ago. The beach was clean. Hiro had seen it yesterday. He hadn't said anything, but seeing that pristine stretch of sand, cleared of decades of garbage by his little brother's bare hands, had put a lump in his throat that felt suspiciously like pride. Ready? Hiro asked. No, Izuku squeaked. Then, he took a breath that expanded his chest. Yes. Hiro put the car in gear. Let's go. The drive to Muzutafu's prestigious Hero district was quiet. The radio played low static and pop music. Hiro drove with a careful precision, his eyes scanning the road for threats that weren't there. Old habits. As the massive glass and steel fortress of UA High School came into view, dominating the skyline like a monument to the gods, Hiro felt a wave of nausea. It was a beautiful campus. It was the Golden Gate. It was the factory that churned out the people Hiro despised. Endeavor went here, Hiro thought, his jaw tightening. All Might teaches here. This is the belly of the beast. He pulled the car up to the drop-off zone. Bentleys, limousines, and high-end SUVs were dropping off other students. Inko's dented sedan looked like a cockroach at a butterfly convention. Izuku stared out the window, paralyzed. Izuku, Hiro said sharply. Izuku jumped. Why yes? Hiro turned in his seat, ignoring the twinge in his side. He looked at his brother. He reached out and flicked Izuku's forehead. Ow. Listen to me, Hiro said, his voice dropping into that serious, gravelly tone he used when he was imparting street wisdom. You're walking in there with a bunch of kids who have been told their whole lives that they're special. They have flashy quirks. They have rich parents. They think the world owes them a cape. Izuku nodded, swallowing hard. You're not them, Hiro continued. You know what the world is actually like. You know what trash smells like. You know what it feels like to be scared. That's your weapon. My weapon is being scared? Izuku asked, confused. Your weapon is empathy, Hiro corrected. And grit. Don't try to be All Might. All Might is a statue. You can't save people if you're standing on a pedestal looking down at them. You save them by being in the dirt with them. Hiro grabbed Izuku's shoulder, squeezing firmly. Just be the guy who saves people, Izuku. Don't worry about being the symbol of peace. Just be the guy who reaches out a hand. Got it? Izuku's eyes welled up. He wiped them furiously with his sleeve. Got it. Thanks, Hiro and I. Now get out before I start crying too. It's embarrassing. Izuku laughed, unbuckled his seatbelt, and scrambled out of the car. He stood on the curb, took a deep breath, and turned to face the gate. I'll see you tonight. Izuku waved. Hiro watched him go. He watched Izuku take 3 steps, trip over his own foot, and nearly face-plant into the pavement before a girl with a bob cut caught him with 0 gravity. Hiro snorted, shaking his head. Smooth, kid. He was about to put the car in reverse when a black luxury car pulled up 2 spots ahead. The door opened. A boy stepped out. He had hair split down the middle, white on the right, red on the left. He wore a pristine gray uniform. He moved with a cold, mechanical grace, ignoring the driver who bowed to him. Shuto. Hiro froze. His foot slipped off the clutch, stalling the engine with a violent jerk. He stared at his youngest brother. Shuto looked empty. His eyes were heterochromatic, one gray, one turquoise. The turquoise eye was the same shade as Hiro's. The same shade as the man who had broken them both. Shuto didn't look at the other students. He didn't look at the school with wonder. He looked at it like he was walking into a prison he had been sentenced to since birth. Shuto, Hiro whispered, the name tasting like ash in his mouth. He saw the burn scar around Shuto's left eye. Hiro's hands began to smoke. The leather of the steering wheel hissed. A blue flame licked at his knuckles. He did that, Hiro realized, a murderous rage blinding him for a second. That bastard did that to him. Shuto walked through the gates, a prince of ice and fire, alone in a crowd. Hiro slammed his fist against the dashboard. Damn it! He restarted the car, the engine whining in protest, and peeled away from the curb. He couldn't stay here. If he stayed, he'd find Endeavor. And if he found Endeavor, he would burn UA to the ground, exam or no exam. The hours of the exam were an eternity of silence. Hiro went to work, but he was distracted. He miscounted change twice. He snapped at a customer who asked for a receipt. Is he okay? Did he get crushed? Did they laugh at him? When he finally drove back to the apartment in the late afternoon, the mood was heavy. Inko was pacing the kitchen. The table was set with Izuku's favorite food, katsudon, but nobody was eating. Izuku was sitting at the table, staring at his hands. His arm was in a sling. His cheek had a bandage on it. He looked like he had been run over by a steamroller. You're alive, Hiro said, entering the room and tossing his keys on the counter. Izuku flinched. He looked up, his eyes hollow. I got 0 points, Izuku whispered. Hiro paused. 0? Combat points. 0. Izuku's voice broke. I didn't destroy a single robot. I failed, Hiro and I failed Mom. I failed All Might. I failed everyone. Inko rushed over to hug him, tears streaming down her face. Oh, Izuku, it doesn't matter. You're safe. Recovery girl said you broke 3 limbs, but you're healed now. I don't care about the school. I'm just glad you're not dead. Hiro walked over to the table. He pulled out a chair and sat down opposite Izuku. You broke 3 limbs? Hiro asked calmly. How? You're quirkless. Izuku froze in his mother's arms. He looked at Hiro, panic flashing in his eyes. This was the conversation he had been dreading. Izuku stammered. It happened, in the moment. I was trying to save someone. A girl. The 0-pointer, the giant robot. It was going to crush her. And I just jumped. And I punched it. Izuku looked at his hand, flexing the fingers. And it broke. The robot broke. And my arm broke too. Hiro stared at him. The air in the kitchen grew still. You manifested a quirk, Hiro stated. At 15. The doctor said, it can happen, Izuku lied, his voice trembling. Under extreme stress. A latent accumulation of power. Like a genetic kickstart. It was a flimsy lie. In the world of quirk science, late bloomers existed, but they were rare, and they usually didn't punch giant robots into oblivion on their first try. But Hiro looked at Izuku. He saw the bandages. He saw the exhaustion. And he remembered the beach, the 10 months of hellish training. He forced his body to evolve, Hiro theorized. Or maybe he always had it, and it was just waiting for a trigger. Like my fire was waiting for hate. So you have a super strength quirk that shatters your bones, Hiro summarized dryly. Congratulations. You're a glass cannon. But I got 0 points, Izuku repeated, putting his head on the table. It doesn't matter. I can't be a hero with 0 points. Hiro reached over and poked Izuku's injured arm. Gently. Did you save the girl? Izuku blinked. Huh, the girl. The one the robot was going to squash. Did she die? No. I smashed it before it could hurt her. Then you didn't fail, Hiro said, leaning back. You did the job. If Yue is too stupid to see that, then screw him. We'll find another way. Izuku sniffled. There is no other way. It's Yue or nothing. Eat your pork cutlet, Hiro commanded. You need the protein for your bones. We'll worry about the rest when the letter comes. The week of purgatory. The week following the exam was a masterclass in anxiety. Izuku was a ghost. He spent his days staring at his phone, lifting small weights in the living room, or mumbling to himself. He checked the mailbox 5 times a day. Hiro tried to distract him. He brought home new video games. He offered to teach Izuku how to cook, which resulted in a very burnt omelet because Hiro's hands ran too hot. But the tension was palpable. For Hiro, the waiting was a different kind of torture. He found himself patrolling as Blue Flame more aggressively. He needed to hit things. He needed to burn things. He kept thinking about Shudo. That cold, dead look in his brother's eyes. He's going to be in that school, Hiro thought, sitting on a rooftop at 3 a.m. If Izuku gets in, they'll be classmates. My brother raised by love, and my brother raised by hate. It felt like the setup to a cosmic joke. And then, there was the fear. If Izuku got in, he would be in the spotlight. The League of Villains, the whispers Hiro heard in the underworld, they were moving. They were looking for a debut. Yue was the perfect stage. If he gets in, I can't protect him from the shadows anymore, Hiro realized. He'll be in the light. The arrival. It happened on a Tuesday evening. Inko was washing dishes. Hiro was reading a newspaper on the couch. Izuku was doing sit-ups on the floor, counting softly. 204, 205. Clack. The mail slot in the front door snapped shut. The sound was like a gunshot in the quiet apartment. Izuku froze mid-sit-up. Inko dropped a plate. It didn't break, thanks to her reflexes catching it with her attraction quirk, but it clattered loudly. I'll get it, Izuku whispered. He scrambled up and walked to the door. He picked up the envelope. It was thick. Heavy. It had the Yue wax seal. He walked back into the living room, holding it like it was a bomb. Open it, Izuku, Hiro said gently, putting down his paper. I can't. I'm scared. Do you want me to open it? Inko asked, wringing her hands. No. I have to do it. Izuku took a deep breath and tore the envelope open. He pulled out a metal disc. He placed it on the table. What is BZZZT? A hologram sprang to life, projecting a blue cone of light into the living room. I am here, Inko shrieked. Hiro fell off the couch. Standing in the center of their coffee table, a miniature, holographic All Might was posing with his hands on his hips. He was wearing a yellow suit that looked ridiculous. As a projection. All Might bellowed. All Might? Izuku gasped. But this is from Yue. I have come to this town to work at Yue. The hologram explained. Hiro stared at the projection with a mix of awe and disgust. He's a teacher? That oaf is going to be teaching children. God help us all. Young Midoriya. All Might pointed at the camera. You passed the written exam with flying colors. But the practical, 0 combat points. A tragedy. Izuku's face crumpled. I knew it. However, All Might leaned into the camera. A hero's job is not just to destroy. It is to save. And you, young Midoriya, did exactly that. The video shifted. It showed a clip of the exam. It showed Izuku jumping. It showed him shattering the 0-pointer. But then, it showed something else. It showed the girl, Uraraka, arguing with President Mike. Please! Give him some of my points! He saved me! Inko covered her mouth, sobbing. Rescue points! All Might shouted. A hidden metric. For your selfless act, the judges have awarded you 60 points. A scoreboard appeared. Izuku's name shot to the top of the list. 0 combat points? Who cares? All Might grinned. 60 rescue points. You pass. Welcome, Izuku Midoriya. This is your Hero Academia. The hologram flickered and died. Silence filled the room. Then, the wailing started. Inko tackled Izuku in a hug, creating a fountain of tears that defied physics. You did it! You did it! Oh, my baby! Izuku was crying too, ugly, heaving sobs of relief. Mom! I did it! Hiro sat on the floor, looking at the metal disc. He got in. The quirkless kid who cried over dropped ice cream. The boy who healed Hiro's wounds with shaking hands. The boy who carried trash on the beach for 10 months. Hiro felt a smile tugging at his scarred lips. It was a real smile this time. He stood up and walked over to the ball of crying Midoriyas. He wrapped his long arms around both of them. Not bad, nerd, Hiro whispered into Izuku's hair. Not bad at all. Hiro and I. Izuku turned and buried his face in Hiro's chest. I'm going to be a hero. Yeah, Hiro said, his voice thick. You are. He looked over Izuku's head at the blank wall where the projection had been. He's going to be a hero, and I'm the brother of a hero. The reality of it hit him. The danger. The scrutiny. The inevitable clash with his past. I should leave, the thought whispered in his mind. I should pack my bag tonight and disappear. If Endeavor finds out who I am, he'll ruin Izuku's life. If the villains find out, they'll use me against him. He looked down at Izuku, who was clinging to him like a lifeline. But I can't leave him. Not now. He needs someone to watch his back. Okay, enough waterworks, Hiro said, pulling away. Inko, we need to celebrate. I'm thinking expensive beef. My treat. Oh, Hiro, you don't have to. Inko sniffled. I insist. The kid's an elitist Yuri student now. He can't eat peasant food. Izuku laughed, wiping his eyes. I'm not an elitist. Give it a week, Hiro smirked. The graveyard. The celebration dinner had been loud and happy. But now, it was midnight. Hiro parked Inko's car outside the massive iron gates of the Muzurifa's city cemetery. Where are you going? Inko had asked when he left. Just for a drive, he had lied. Need to clear my head. He walked through the rows of graves. The moonlight washed the stone markers in silver. It was quiet here. Peaceful. He knew the way by heart, even though he had never visited. He had looked it up on maps 1,000 times. The Todoroki family plot was grand. A massive obelisk of black marble. It screamed wealth and legacy, and there, off to the side, was a smaller stone. Tuya Todoroki, beloved son and brother, age 13, Hiro stood in front of his own grave. He stared at the name. Beloved, he scoffed. That's a laugh. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a cigarette. He lit it with the tip of his finger. He took a drag, letting the smoke fill his lungs, then exhaled it directly onto the stone. You're a lie, he told the stone. You never existed. Tuya was just a prototype. A failed experiment. He looked at the flowers left there. White lilies. They were fresh. Mom? He wondered. Or Fuyumi? It definitely wasn't Endeavor. Hiro felt a sudden surge of bitterness. He spat on the ground in front of the grave. I'm still here, old man, he whispered to the wind. And now my brother is coming for your throne. And my other brother is going to surpass your masterpiece. He turned to leave. A touching sentiment. Hiro froze. He didn't spin around. He didn't panic. He just let his hands ignite, the blue flames casting long, dancing shadows on the gravestones. Who's there? Hiro asked, his voice low. From behind a large angel statue, a figure stepped out. He was thin, wearing a black hoodie. He had messy, pale blue hair. And on his face, a severed hand. Hiro narrowed his eyes. A villain. My name is Shigaraki Tamura, the man said. His voice was scratchy, dry. He scratched at his neck with 2 fingers. I've been watching you, Blue Flame. Stalker, Hiro deadpanned. I don't sign autographs. Funny. Shigaraki stepped closer. You hate them, don't you? The heroes. The fakes. I hate a lot of things. Bad haircuts included. Shigaraki stopped scratching. His red eye peered through the fingers of the hand mask. You have a powerful quirk. A destructive quirk. It's wasted on petty vigilantism. You're just cleaning up the trash in the alleyways. Why not burn down the mansion? Hiro turned fully to face him. What do you want? I'm putting together a team, Shigaraki said. A league. To kill the symbol of peace. To tear down this false society. Hiro's heart skipped a beat. Kill All Might? You're insane, Hiro said. All Might is untouchable. We have a way, Shigaraki grinned beneath the hand. We have a weapon designed to kill him. Join us, Blue Flame. Or should I say, Tuya? Hiro's flames flared violently, doubling in size. How do you know that name? I know a lot of things, Shigaraki rasped. I know you look at this grave with hatred. I know you look at Yuri with disgust. We are the same. We were both cast aside. He held out a hand. Not a fake one. His real hand. Join us. Hiro looked at the hand. He looked at the decay in Shigaraki's eyes. He thought of endeavor. He thought of the pain of Sokoto Peak. It was tempting. To have a purpose. To have revenge. To destroy the system that created him. But then, he thought of a green-haired boy crying over a hologram. He thought of Inko making Katsudan. He thought of the promise he made in the bathroom while Izuku stapled his side. I'm going to protect you, Izuku. If he joined the League, he would be Izuku's enemy. He would be the villain Izuku had to fight. No, Hiro said. Shigaraki tilted his head. No, I don't take orders, Hiro said, extinguishing his flames. And I don't join cults. I work alone. Disappointing, Shigaraki sighed. Sensei will be disappointed. Tell your sensei to stay out of my way, Hiro warned. Or I'll burn him too. He walked past Shigaraki, shouldering him intentionally. Shigaraki didn't move to stop him. You'll change your mind, Shigaraki called out as Hiro reached the gate. When you realize that alone isn't enough. When the heroes take everything from you again, you'll come to us. Hiro didn't look back. He got into the car and slammed the door. He drove away, his hands shaking on the wheel. They know, Hiro thought, panic rising in his throat. They know who I am. He needed to be careful. He needed to be stronger. Because now, the game had truly begun. Izuku was entering the light of Yue, and Hiro was being hunted in the dark. The acceptance letter was just the beginning of the war. Hiro pressed the gas pedal, speeding back toward the only home he had left. Back to the emeralds that kept the ashes at bay.